Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You may recognize these words from Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail, but history recognizes these words as a spark that not only fueled the civil rights movement in the 1960s, but still burns today. So what does it have to do with society today? Well, it's kind of a loaded question, but to answer it, we have to look at our past, present, and our potential future. Throughout the 60s, African Americans were not only fighting for desegregation, but for a federal law on voting to pass. Along with African Americans, women had to fight to vote in the early 1900s. It may seem like basic human rights should just be given to people, but history tells a different story. History tells a story of systematic power and control, even though the people that politicians control are the very people who put them in power. And now look at where we are today. Every person, black, white, man, woman, Muslim, or member of the LGBTQ community, has the right to vote, and this was accomplished through activism. But simply having the right to vote does not fulfill the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness promised by our Constitution. It's not enough to hope and pray that future generations won't live like we do. It's not fair that they will have to live with our failure of not standing up for all people everywhere. Right now is the time to fight for the people of today, for the children of tomorrow. Because there are people who have never had to fight for a seat at the table, who have never been told what is right for them, who have never been discriminated against for their skin color, gender identification, sexuality, or socioeconomic background. Activism isn't about giving a voice to the voiceless. It's about giving a megaphone to those whose society refused to hear. And there are so many different ways to get involved in activism. Some of them being attending protests and marches like the Women's March, the LGBTQ plus Pride March, and the March for Our Lives, by contacting representatives and through social media. So the Women's March is an annual march that started January of 2017. Its attendees included women and men, young and old, students, influencers, politicians, and teachers, all wanting to push for the equality of men and women. The Women's March has an emphasis on feminism, which, simply put, is the belief that men and women should be equal. So if you believe in the equality of women and men in all aspects of life, whether or not you want to call yourself it, you are a feminist. In private corporations, it is 100% legal for women and people of color to be paid less than a white man. It is also legal for states to enact laws controlling women's bodies and their access to contraception. It is also legal to have a pink tax on feminine hygiene products and make it so you can't use food stamps to purchase these items because they aren't deemed necessities. The Women's March became a platform for women to share their Me Too stories and urge that people stand behind the Time's Up movement and with women who have come out about being sexually assaulted or harassed in the workplace. So a lot of people think that women, especially women in Hollywood, are coming out about powerful and influential men, accusing powerful and influential men of sexual misconduct to get attention, and find it hard to get behind this movement because of it. But can you name all 60 women who came out about Bill Cosby? Can you even name 5 of them? The Women's March is bringing these injustices to people's attention while giving people a platform to share their experiences and urging for radical change in the way women are treated. The LGBTQ plus Pride March, it gives the members who identify as a part of this group a place to fight for their rights while also setting examples for those who are afraid to come out. Same-sex marriage is legal in all 50 states, but discrimination is still legal in 28. States have passed laws allowing adoption agencies to discriminate against same-sex couples without penalty. There are only 15 states that protect children under 18 from conversion therapy, which is different forms of hypnosis, behavior and cognitive therapies, sex therapies, and psychotropic medications. On top of state bans, transgender people have been banned in serving in the United States military. You would think that a country that prides itself on people's abundance of American pride would allow all people to serve to protect its citizens, but instead discriminates against the very people it promises to protect. This is exactly why people who identify as a part of this group come together in pride of who they are and expose people to the injustices that they face every day. The March for Our Lives trended on social media after its inaugural march and still holds its prominence on social media today. Hundreds of thousands of people marched on Washington not to abolish the Second Amendment, but to adjust it, so that every student has the ability to return home after a day at school. The March for Our Lives is a prime example of student activism. Students, especially in high school, don't have much of a voice in politics, while the people in power dictate our future. So attending marches and protests gives us a chance to actively make change and let our voices be heard. According to the New York Times, there has been 8 school shootings in the United States in 2019. That is more than 1 a month. And could you name all 8? Could you even name 3 of them? The students who died in these schools will never get to go to their senior prom, will never walk at graduation, will never receive an acceptance letter in the mail from their dream schools, things we all take for granted. And we can't even name the schools that these kids died in. The issue of guns in our country doesn't stop at students, teachers, and administrators in schools. It's at the malls, mosques, synagogues, and concerts. Those people will never get to tuck their children into bed at night or tell their family that they love them. So when will enough be enough? How much blood do we need on our hands for us all to realize that what is happening is wrong? Students and young activists like Emma Gonzalez, a survivor on the attack on the Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, gave speeches at the March for Our Lives, advocating for gun reform, an issue that has yet to have any legislation passed in light of it, yet it affects every person in the world, because the issue of guns in our country and abroad doesn't stop at the students, teachers, and administrators in schools. It's at the malls, mosques, synagogues, and concerts. And this all goes deeper than your party affiliation and your right to bear arms. It's the right to live. It's the right to leave your home and not be afraid you will never make it back again. You always think it'll never happen to you. Not your school, not your kids, not your loved ones. And I'm sure that's exactly what the people in Parkland thought, or Las Vegas, or Paris, Manchester, Denver, Orlando, Sandy Hook, or Columbine. Every single brother, sister, child, mother, father, friend, and neighbor had a heartbeat. Their pictures are inside someone's wallet, and their loved ones had to attend their funerals. And this is exactly why we need to march for our lives. Another way to get involved in activism is by contacting your representatives. You can simply Google "contact my representative," and by just putting in your zip code, you are given access to your representative's emails and office phone numbers. Your representatives, your senators, your congresswomen and men, your presidents want to remain in office and want people to vote for them. So by contacting them and telling them the social issues that you face, you are compelling them to serve in their constituents' best interests. So this is where you all come in. Vote. Vote people who will serve their constituents and not themselves and the corporations who fund them. Vote people who have the same standards and values as you. Vote people who make you proud to call yourself an American. Whether it's for president, Senate, Congress, or even school board, vote. No vote is too small and no number can possibly be too many. It is your civic duty to vote and let your voices be heard in the most effective way. If you live in this district and your zip code is 19390, your Congress representative is Chrissy Houlihan. And if you live in the state of Pennsylvania, your 2 senators are Bob Casey and Pat Toomey. So call them, email them, be annoying and let them hear you. Because if they see that people share a concern that is important enough to them to email 10, 20, 30 times and they don't respond, if they don't accommodate your needs and the needs of your communities, then what are they here for? They serve me and they serve you. And if they do anything less than that, then they do not deserve to hold a seat in our government. Another way to get involved with activism is through social media. In a society where access to different forms of social media is accessible around the world, it's allowing people to see the injustices that don't make the news. Over 1 million Muslims are being held in Chinese concentration camps today. But you don't hear this story on any major news outlet in America. Or Ahed Tamimi, a young girl who is now a symbol of resistance in Palestine after she was jailed for slapping an Israeli soldier outside of her home in occupied West Bank, who took the stage in May at a protest in London to free Palestine. Or the families being separated at the border and the children dying in ICE custody. Or that Missouri's last Planned Parenthood is at risk of losing its license. Social media has the ability to become a weapon in combating social injustices and illuminating new forms of activism. But why does this all matter? Why does what you, one person in a world of 7 billion people, do matter? By standing up and speaking out about injustices, you are allowing everyone to see. And once they see, once they know, they can no longer turn away, blaming their ignorance of the issues as a reason why they never stood up for them. It's easy to discount people and the issues they face when they don't affect you, when it's not your way of life at risk. But having that privilege to see wrong and not step up, to remain silent, is just that, a privilege, one that not many have. We can no longer be silent about things that matter, especially human rights, because there comes a time when silence is taking the side of the oppressor. I don't want you to think of this as a call to arms. I want you to think of this as a wake-up call, one that makes each and every one of you decide which side of history you want to be on. As a society, while it's important to have more open conversations about discrimination on the basis of sex, race, sexuality, and gun violence, conversations can only go so far. What is needed is action. As a society, we need to rise up, speak up, and as Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, shake the table, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you.